Thank you, everybody. The speech, strategic thinking, is really also a little bit about my personal mission and how I started my business. It was really through a lot of these steps that I'm going to be talking about that kind of led me to the idea of becoming a consultant in this area and see the need for it. So again, strategic thinking is a way of seeing opportunity. Strategic thinking, I'm also applying this to the business person, to all of us who have to struggle to find opportunity, to compete, to build something from ourselves. How can we really compete in a world that's constantly changing? So there are two words that really started my journey. The two words I kind of focused on was opportunity and perception. Opportunity and perception. And there were three things that came up at that time when I was thinking about how can we see opportunity. How can we, in our day-to-day competition, in our day-to-day struggling to pay bills or taking care of our families, how do we constantly keep refocusing ourselves, as we were talking before, about seeing opportunity? The first thing that I remembered was this phrase that I kept running into, where people were saying to one another, we've said it ourselves, and someone might have said it to you, is the solution you're looking for is right in front of you. It's right there, staring at your face. Have you ever had anyone say that to you? Mm-hmm. Have you ever said that to someone else? Yeah. Wasn't there a sense of frustration? Because it was right there, but we couldn't see it. So you have to ask yourself, well, why can't we see things that are so obviously in front of our face? It's an opportunity. It's important. It could be a solution. It could take us somewhere, but we can't see it. So I was thinking a lot about that question. And how do we apply that to business? I'm a small business owner. I started a consulting firm. I cannot afford not to see an opportunity. I can't afford it. We all, whether you're in a big business, you're in a nonprofit, you're in a bigger company, we're all challenged that we have to see opportunities, we have to compete. But how do we do that? The next thing that came up, second question, was, you ever read about a new invention or a new business or something, and you look at it and the first thing that you think of is, wow, that idea is fabulous. That's genius. Now, go back and think about the last time you may have thought about that. When you said, oh, this is genius. I bet you, and I firmly believe, 9 out of 10 times, it's not some tremendous technological whatever. We kind of accept there's these scary smart people that do that, okay? And that's out of our reach. But when we say that's genius, that's usually because it's where somebody took an idea, looked around, and they saw another idea, put this together, and wow, this is now different. This is now better. This is a more interesting idea. This is something that competition isn't doing. And we look back in it and we say, how did they think about that? How did they figure that out? And the first thing you think about, because it was really just putting two things together, and they're there, and they're in front of our face, but they thought of creating a business by adding or doing it this a little bit differently. And the first thing you think about after that is, why didn't I do that? I could have thought of that. And yes, we could have thought of that. But somebody saw it, the opportunity of putting these things together to make something new. Genius. It's not genius. It's what all of us can do. But still, it's how do we do this? It's available. So that's what kind of led me down this path of thinking. And then I said, okay, perception. What are the fundamentals of perception? The fundamentals of perception are, one, looking, your eyes, hearing with your ears, and thinking. Those are your three major components. Those are physiological. That's what happens. That's how you perceive the world. But wait a minute. There's hearing, and then there's listening. Those are two different things. Listening, your blood pressure goes up. Your body temperature goes up. Listening is work. Listening is more in-depth. Listening is more intentful. There's intent. You have attention focused towards something. So you're not just hearing, you're listening. Now the same thing about looking. We all look. We don't tell ourselves to look, we just look. But the police departments of all, everywhere, of every country, the first thing they teach an officer is you never run into a situation. I don't care if someone's screaming, yelling, someone's down, whatever. The first thing in New York City, they're getting criticized, I remember, all the time because, there'll be some catastrophe happening and, it takes its time. And you see them. They're looking at the corners, they're looking around. They're taught, see what is going on. Don't just look, don't react, don't run in there. You have to take the time to perceive what really is going on. It could be a trap, it could be something else, there could be other things going on. So you have to take the time. They're taught, they're trained. So, listening and seeing are skills. I put to you the third of thinking, which is automatic, we think, that also can be a skill. And I call that strategic thinking. That's thinking with an intent, with a purpose. That's thinking more in-depthly to perceive what really are the issues that are most important to us. So, if that is true, then we have to think about thinking. Now, it sounds funny, it sounds almost redundant, but it is crucial and it's imperative, and it will, as business owners, as people, will help us to be able to perceive much better and think much better and come up with better decisions. And there's a couple of books that in particular I just throw out that are interesting, and one of them is John Maxwell's book, which is on thinking. And he actually breaks down that there are 11 different ways to think. So it's not thinking is just one way to do it. There's many different pieces to it. There's many ways to think. Ed De Bono is another famous writer on thinking. He has something called 6 hats thinking. He even makes you visualize this by going into a room with 6 different colored hats. And he says, okay, now if you really want to see your challenge, you want to see what the problem is and you want to try to solve it, you have to look at it from different ways. And it's a process. Strategic thinking is a process. And he proves that, manifests that, by having a hat. All right, everyone put on your white hat. White hats, facts. What is the facts behind the situation? After you've exhausted that, you put on your other hat, yellow hat. Okay, knowing the facts. Be creative. What can we do? What can we do with this, with these facts? So again, by going through these different steps, it's a process that ensures that you're going to see all angles of an issue, of a problem, of a question. So again, it's the proof that this is a process. The other aspect of this is to figure out that why is it, if we know it's a process and we can start putting this into a practice, what's preventing us? What are the things that prevent us? Looking at this very carefully, I look at it that there's 3 different levels of mind that we need to work with. The first level of mind is understanding the brain itself. And we have a lot out there with neuroscience that has studied very I can't even say this now, intricately exactly how the brain works. Not only through MRI, they can see slices of your brain. They can see you thinking. That's amazing. That's wondrous. It's also scary. But the point is that they can see you thinking. So they're learning so much in the past 3 decades about how the brain works. Well, bottom line, one thing that they learned is that the brain uses shortcuts. It uses shortcuts.